At 6, the Prince and Princess of Wales greet well-wishers as plans for the Queen's state funeral are set out. Prince William describes how difficult it was walking behind his grandmother's coffin yesterday, saying it brought back memories of Princess Diana's funeral. Thousands continue to queue for hours to file past the Queen's coffin. The line is currently more than 4.5 miles long. Also on the programme, President Putin admits China has concerns about the war in Ukraine as he meets President Xi Jinping for the first time since the invasion. And it is game, set, and match for the tennis legend Roger Federer as he announces he's retiring at the age of 41.
And stay with us here on BBC News, where we will bring you continuing coverage of events plus analysis from our team of correspondents in the UK and around the world.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. Prince William has told well-wishers at Sandringham how difficult walking behind his grandmother's coffin was yesterday, saying it brought back memories of his mother Diana's funeral 25 years ago. The Prince and Princess of Wales stopped at the gates of Sandringham to look at the sea of flowers and messages that had been left. Today, details of the Queen's state funeral on Monday have been set out. It will start in Westminster Abbey at 11 in the morning. Prince William and Prince Harry will again walk side by side with the royal family following the coffin on its final journey. Our royal correspondent Daniela Ralph reports.
Well, Sophie, when so much of the past 7 days has been about Balmoral or Buckingham Palace, today the focus switched to Sandringham and the people who are coming here to pay their respects. As the Prince and Princess of Wales spoke to the crowds, they both shared their own personal sadness.
Viewing the carpet of flowers and tribute, the Prince and Princess of Wales came to Sandringham to say thank you to the staff, to the community who supported the Queen throughout her reign. It was an emotional return to the Norfolk estate, a chance to chat and reflect on events of the past week. The Prince of Wales was asked about walking behind his grandmother's coffin to Westminster Hall yesterday.
Doing the walk yesterday was challenging. That's back to memories.
Challenging, it brought back memories, he said. The sombre walk from Buckingham Palace alongside Prince Harry. A reminder of when, as a 15-year-old, he walked the same route behind his mother's coffin. The pain of past anguish still keenly felt. William spent many happy Christmases at Sandringham. It was a sanctuary for the royal family, a place they could retreat to. And every February, the Queen came to remember her father, who died at the Norfolk estate 70 years ago. But today, Sandringham remembered the Queen.
I just said that my sincere condolences to both her and William, and also to King Charles and to the royal family, because I'm heartbroken that our lovely Queen's gone.
Across the generations, they came to see the Prince and Princess. There were lighter moments too, with many filming their exchanges with William and Catherine on their phones.
I love he's got his little Guardsman t-shirt on. And then Paddington as well. Yeah. I was saying, I think Paddington might have knocked the corgi off the top spot. I'm not sure how they'll take the corgis won't take that very well.
We spoke to William and we spoke to Kate. They both said about his little outfits, how nice they were. They're just really nice and genuine people. To say thanks for the Queen, everything she's done and all the things they're doing for everyone, it's just so nice.
The Prince and Princess of Wales are key to the future of the royal family. They are the younger face of modern monarchy, but their new roles bring added pressure and scrutiny.
Today was an official duty, but also a chance to share their sadness with many who viewed the royal family as neighbours. Daniela Ralph, BBC News, Sandringham.
2,000 people will gather in Westminster Abbey on Monday morning for the final farewell to Britain's longest reigning monarch. World leaders, prime ministers past and present, and foreign royals will be among those at the service, which will last an hour before the Queen's coffin is taken to Windsor, where she will be laid to rest in St George's Chapel beside the Duke of Edinburgh. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell reports.
It rests on the catafalque, a brightly lit coffin which has become the focus of a nation's sadness. Within the ancient walls of Westminster Hall, so many emotions, so many individual expressions of gratitude and respect. Thousands have already filed through. Many tens of thousands more are expected over the weekend. And as the nation mourns, preparations are advancing for Queen Elizabeth's state funeral. On Monday, the first procession will be from the Palace of Westminster to Westminster Abbey. At 10:35, the Queen's coffin will be borne from Westminster Hall. It will be taken in procession via Parliament Square and Broad Sanctuary to the West Gate of Westminster Abbey. It will arrive there at 10:52. In the darkness of the early morning, all the elements are being meticulously rehearsed. The finishing touches to plans drawn up over many years. The procession to the Abbey will be led by the massed pipes and drums of all the Scottish and Irish regiments in the British Army. And this is the most visible sign that this is to be a full state funeral, the like of which we haven't seen in Britain since Winston Churchill's in 1965. The state gun carriage will be drawn by 150 Royal Naval Ratings rather than by horses. Inside Westminster Abbey will be a congregation of 2,000. Among them, heads of state, including the US President Joe Biden, with heads of government and representatives from virtually every country in the world. At approximately 11:55, the last post will sound and there will be a national 2-minute silence. Then the procession from Westminster Abbey to Wellington Arch. The state gun carriage will be drawn from the Abbey around Parliament Square, up Whitehall and across Horse Guards, and then via the Mall, past Buckingham Palace, and finally up Constitution Hill to Wellington Arch at Hyde Park Corner. There, under Wellington Arch, the coffin will be transferred from the gun carriage to the state hearse, ready for the journey to Windsor. The route to be taken from Hyde Park Corner to Windsor hasn't so far been disclosed. However, officials recognise the need for the public to be as closely involved as possible.
The Queen and indeed other members of the royal family, particularly Prince Philip when he was alive, took a close interest in this to try and make sure that it combined the dignity of the occasion, the formality of the occasion, with as much access as possible for people to see the coffin at close quarters.
The final element of the funeral plan will see the hearse travelling up the Long Walk at Windsor, then into the castle's main quadrangle, and then down the slope to St George's Chapel. Inside the chapel at 4 o'clock, the committal service will begin. At the end of it, the instruments of state, the monarch's crown and the orb and sceptre, will be removed from the coffin, and later, in a private service, the Queen's coffin will be laid to rest with that of her late husband. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
Well, the queue to file past the Queen lying in state is now stretching back more than 4.5 miles along the south bank of the River Thames from Westminster Hall, reaching beyond Bermondsey Beach. Our special correspondent Lucy Manning has been with those waiting to pay their respects.
Well, the people behind me who are close to going in have been waiting for about 6 to 7 hours. From the back of the queue, the wait is 8 hours. Of course, the destination is a sombre one, but if it's not too strange to say, actually the journey most people are having is a joyful one. That is until they get to the steps of Westminster Hall. It's the long and winding road to Westminster Hall, stretching miles through the capital. It is glorious. The desire to pay tribute to the Queen can be measured in people standing shoulder to shoulder for more than 4 miles. Some journeys even longer than just the queue here. Becky from Ayrshire took the overnight bus from Glasgow.
Came into Victoria Station at about 10 to 7 and I've just been queuing since then, managed to get to the end of the queue and I'll get a bus back tonight.
So why have you made this massive journey?
I love the Queen and I just wanted to come down and she's just like your gran, I suppose. Without knowing her, you feel like you do know her.
After nearly 6 hours, Becky was overcome by her moment by the coffin.
It kind of hit you in that moment that's it really. I'm getting a wee bit emotional.
That's okay.
But it's sad. But it's something that I'll never forget. I'm so glad that I came here. It was worth the journey.
Darkness didn't deter. Few see the hours here as an effort, more of an experience. Joy left Manchester at 5 a.m, joining the queue at 9.
It's absolutely amazing. The camaraderie is just something that you can't put into words unless you're in this queue. You actually feel it. It's great. We're not sure how many more hours there are to go. We feel that we're near, but I think we're far.
Many hours later,
spine chilling in the aura that was in there and the sheer magnificence and beauty of Her late Majesty's coffin. But to actually be there in the here and the now, I can't believe that me and my friends have done that.
17-year-old Kabir feeling the 6 hours of waiting and walking. How long have you been queuing for till this point?
Since 8:30.
Right, how's it been?
Long, I'm tired, but I get to see the Queen. Yeah, because it's like once in a lifetime moment. This is probably going to be the last Queen.
This part of the queue is opposite St Paul's, but officials will need to decide at the weekend when to close it to ensure that all those who are still in it get the chance to file past the Queen's coffin before the lying in state ends. Inside, we are witnessing simple acts of remembrance and respect. Whether you held the highest office in the land or just work in one, everyone has their moment. A salute, a tear, a kiss, silent thoughts about the Queen. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
Disabled people or those with a long-term condition, which means they can't queue for a long time, can join an accessible queuing system so they can still pay their respects in person. Our correspondent Sean Dilley has more.
The start of the journey. This is where many disabled people are signing up to pay their respects to the Queen.
So I suffer from autism, ADHD and Tourette's.
Jenny and her family have travelled from Cheshire. It's a visit made possible thanks to this system.
I'm a big royalist, so I really wanted. So when I've seen this queue, it was like, we're coming down. We made the decision like yesterday and that was it.
I'm so grateful, very, very grateful.
Pam has travelled from Edinburgh to collect her wristband.
It's been lovely. We didn't think we were going to be able to do it. I couldn't have done that without this help.
So this literally makes the difference to
Totally, totally. I'm thrilled to bits that we're going to be able to do it.
Jenny, her daughter and retired guide dog Andy have come to pay their respects too.
We were told it was going to be hours and hours, so we're very pleased to know there's this access queue, which has cut the time down hugely, I think.
From here, people are given a time slot and told where to join the accessible queue. It's taken me just over 10 minutes to walk the half mile from the registration point here to the Palace of Westminster. People from both queues are entering the security point into Westminster Hall, where Her late Majesty is lying in state. Around 2 hours after we first spoke, Jenny and her family have arrived at Westminster Hall. Their progress has been considerably quicker than for those who were able to stand in the main queue. For those who were unable to queue for long periods, appreciation.
It was great.
Yeah, it was good. It was run smoothly.
It's harder for people like us. It's harder for people who are disabled to do it, so it's nice to have that option.
Well, actually, it was very good, wasn't it?
Out of 10, how inclusive and accessible do you think today was?
Definitely 10 out of 10, as far as I'm concerned. It was very moving as well as we were there, you know.
Yeah, there were no steps involved and no bridge, things to get. So it was great, yeah, it was really good.
It's a system that seems to be running smoothly so far. If it continues this way, it could allow thousands of disabled people who may otherwise miss the opportunity to pay their respects in person. Sean Dilley, BBC News.
Well, this is the government's live page with the latest update on the queue. You can see it is currently around 4.5 miles long, and the estimated queuing time is about 8 hours. If you can't get to London and you do want to pay your respects, the BBC is offering a continuous 24-hour view of the Queen's lying in state. So the service is available on the BBC homepage, on the BBC News website and app, the iPlayer and on BBC Parliament, or you can press the red button. The time is 6:15, our top story this evening. The Prince and Princess of Wales greet well-wishers at Sandringham as plans for the Queen's state funeral are set out. And coming up, memories of the Queen at Chelsea Flower Show and the royal role for a famous clematis grower.
And stay with us here on BBC News, where we will bring you continuing coverage of events plus analysis from our team of correspondents in the UK and around the world.
The tennis great Roger Federer, one of the most successful players of all time, has announced that he is retiring at the age of 41. He turned professional in 1998 and became a Grand Slam champion no fewer than 20 times, among them a record 8 Wimbledon titles. But in the past few years, he has struggled with a knee injury, and next week he'll play his last professional match in London. Andy Swiss looks back at an incredible career.
He seemed one of sport's timeless talents. Across more than 2 decades and a fair few hairstyles, Roger Federer turned winning into a way of life. But now one of the greatest players in history has announced there'll be no more trophies. Since winning a record 8th Wimbledon title in 2017, Federer's struggled with a knee injury. He's not played competitively this year, posting footage of his rehabilitation online. Hopes were raised by pictures of him back on court. But today he took to social media to say that after one last event next week, he's retiring.
I've worked hard to return to full competitive form, but I also know my body's capacities and limits, and its message to me lately has been clear. I am 41 years old. I've played more than 1,500 matches over 24 years. Tennis has treated me more generously than I ever would have dreamt. And now I must recognise when it is time to end my competitive career.
His statistics are staggering. His Wimbledon crown back in 2003, the first of some 20 Grand Slam titles. But it wasn't just what he did, it was the way in which he did it. That style, that elegance, Federer made the extraordinary look effortless. Brilliance, while it seemed barely breaking sweat.
I think he was one of the most beautiful tennis players that I've ever witnessed on a court in terms of how he played the sport, the fluidity, the grace, the balletic sort of qualities and artistic qualities that he brought to the game.
Perhaps Federer's greatest opponent, Rafael Nadal, also paid tribute. "Dear Roger, my friend and rival," he tweeted, "I wish this day would have never come. It's a sad day for me personally and for sports around the world." And so just weeks after Serena Williams announced her retirement, another legend leaves the stage. Federer's exit from Wimbledon last summer, effectively his final bow, but the achievements will never fade of one of sport's most glittering stars. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
China and Russia have held their first summit-level talks since Moscow's attack on Ukraine. President Putin thanked Xi Jinping for what he called China's balanced position on the war. But President Putin did acknowledge that Beijing has also got concerns about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, is in Moscow. And how significant is President Putin's admission, Steve?
Well, first of all, the meeting itself was significant, a chance for Vladimir Putin to show that despite Western sanctions, despite Western efforts to try to isolate his country over the invasion of Ukraine, that Russia still has powerful friends. And then that admission, yes, significant, unexpected, I think. Vladimir Putin saying, look, I understand that China has questions and concerns about the situation in Ukraine, suddenly the Kremlin leader revealing to the world that China is anxious, China is worried about the Russian offensive there. Now, that is interesting, that is new, that is something we haven't heard from Beijing publicly. So signs perhaps of some friction there between Russia and China. What we don't know is what happened next when the journalist left the hall in the closed part of that meeting. We don't know whether President Xi laid out in more detail his concerns to President Putin. And we don't know, of course, whether the Kremlin will be given pause for thought by those concerns.
Steve Rosenberg, thank you. Now a look at some stories making the news today. The Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, will deliver a mini budget on Friday next week, where it's expected he'll give more details on help with rising living costs and tax cuts aimed at boosting growth. The programme will come 4 days after the Queen's funeral and at the end of the official mourning period across the UK. The billionaire founder of the outdoor fashion brand Patagonia has given away his company to a charitable trust. Yvon Chouinard said any profit not reinvested in running the business would go to fighting climate change. Patagonia's sales were worth over £1 billion this year. Hundreds of people have reported seeing a shooting star across the sky over Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scientists are using video footage filmed by the public to work out whether the object travelling across the night sky was a meteor or space junk and where it came from. It's not yet known if it landed or burnt up in the atmosphere. Mourners have worn pink at the funeral of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Korbel, who was shot and killed in Liverpool last month. She died after a gunman chasing another man burst into her home. Judith Moritz reports.
Olivia Pratt-Korbel's coffin was brought past her primary school to the church next door. Yards from where the little girl used to play, her community came together to say goodbye. Cheryl Korbel is still nursing the wrist injury she suffered when trying to stop the gunman who shot her daughter. Somehow she found the strength to give the eulogy.
She will never be forgotten. So us and I will never say goodbye, but what I will say is good night, love you, see you in the morning. Mwah.
Olivia's school displayed its own tributes to the 9-year-old.
So the wishes of the family in church were that everyone wore a splash of pink. So today in school, the children are all wearing a splash of pink. We've got pink hearts in the windows. We've got ribbons on the fence.
The Archbishop of Liverpool said that, like the Queen, Olivia had lived life to the fullest.
Olivia's life was a life well lived, even though it's a short one, because she brought so much happiness to her immediate family.
Olivia was killed when a gunman burst into her home whilst chasing another man. Merseyside police are still looking for the attacker and his weapons, this week searching a stream at a nearby golf club. So far there have been 9 arrests, but no one's been charged. Yesterday, a £50,000 reward was offered for information which leads directly to the conviction of Olivia's killer. Olivia was one of 3 people shot dead in Liverpool within the same week last month. Today, the city's mayor said she hoped justice would be swift and true. Judith Moritz, BBC News, Liverpool.
The former Wales Rugby Union player and broadcaster and commentator Eddie Butler has died at the age of 65. He played 16 times for Wales, captaining the side on 6 occasions. As a broadcaster, Butler will be remembered for his brilliant prose that accompanied major sporting and political events, with the final one marking the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Now let's go back to Westminster Hall and those live pictures as thousands of people continue to file past the Queen's coffin. Another long wait through the night for a lot of people. On top of the Queen's coffin is a wreath that has been made up of flowers from her gardens in Balmoral and Windsor. The Queen loved her gardens. She was patron of the Royal Horticultural Society for 70 years and she loved the Chelsea Flower Show.
David Bowes-Lyon, the Queen's uncle, escorted her on her preview of the Chelsea Flower Show.
The Queen visited the Chelsea Flower Show more than 50 times. She only missed a handful of shows during her long reign. It was one of her favourite fixtures in the calendar and one that she often took the whole family to. Chelsea was also one of the Queen's last big public appearances in May. She was able to move around the showground thanks to her new buggy, and she clearly enjoyed it.
She seemed incredibly animated. I suppose what the buggy created is a slightly different environment, because normally when people visit places, you have people jostling around and people being moved on and back, etc. But we had the sort of the privilege of sitting side by side and just stopping and starting the buggy, which meant that she was very easily guided around the whole Chelsea Flower Show.
And then the bees turn up, as you can see, they've all just turned up. We haven't hired them in for the day.
You didn't bring them with you?
Didn't bring them with us.
Raymond Everson is a renowned clematis grower from Guernsey. The Queen would make a beeline for him year after year.
I spoke with Her Majesty and she said, well, clematis really won't grow at Balmoral. And I said, ma'am, with respect, I'm sure they will. And so spoke with the head gardener and spent some time walking with the Queen, just the two of us. That was just magical. I met the regal Queen, and I also met this very most wonderful lady and we could be very relaxed and chatting. And, you know, I felt sort of elevated somehow or other, but it was just a wonderful feeling just being with Her Majesty.
And on the Queen's final visit to Chelsea this year, she made public his royal role.
We wouldn't have any clematis over here.
I promised the Queen that I would go to Balmoral to see how the clematis were, and I will go back in October to Balmoral and take a collection of some of our newer clematis for the gardens too.
So the clematis will live on?
Absolutely.
Raymond Everson there, the man who brought clematis to Balmoral. Time now for a look at the weather. Simon King is here. Hello.
Hi, Sophie. Some sunshine today for many of us, and actually temperatures just about got to 20 degrees Celsius, but it is going to turn cooler over the next few days, so we may not see 20 degrees again, and that'll be the first time since early June. Now, we had some sunny spells, as I mentioned, through today, and through this evening and tonight, we keep some clear skies. Still some showers towards the eastern and northeastern areas of England. Elsewhere, though, it's looking largely dry, and beneath those clear skies, it's once again going to turn quite chilly. A chillier night for many of us. Temperatures just about still in double figures across the far southeast, but in northeast Scotland, 2 or 3 degrees here. Lots of sunshine, though, to start off on Friday morning. Showers across Scotland, a few showers coming their way into North Wales and down the eastern side of England throughout the day. And it's here where you really will notice that chill, that northerly wind, quite strong. And so temperatures on the coast, about 12 or 13 degrees Celsius down the eastern side of the UK. Away from those stronger winds out towards the southwest, temperatures will be a little bit higher. But as I mentioned, we won't see 20 degrees tomorrow, maybe 18, perhaps 19 degrees in South Wales and southwest England. And of course, lots of focus in London in the coming days for the queuing for the lying in state. It's looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells. But again, notice those temperatures, 15, 16 degrees Celsius. And that colder air is going to move further southward across many parts of the UK as we go into the start of the weekend. High pressure to the west, that keeps things settled, but it will be the temperatures you'll notice. Look at this, early on Saturday morning, potentially down to 1 Celsius in central and southern areas of England. An isolated grass frost is possible for all of us. Temperatures pretty much in single figures. But as I mentioned, lots of fine and dry weather for the weekend into Bank Holiday Monday and the state funeral as well. Temperatures about 12 to 17 degrees Celsius with some sunny spells.
Thank you very much. Well, before we go, let's go back to those huge queues in London. Chichi Izundu has spent the day in the line. Let's join her now. And Chichi, for anyone thinking of travelling to London to join that queue, how long are they going to have to wait?
Well, not that long, actually, because we've only been walking for about 5 hours. It's not the 7, 8 or 12 hours that people are predicting. And I've been walking with Kate and Helen. Kate, why did you decide to come along?
I think mostly it was just a feeling that it would be a mark of respect. I'm the only one in my family who can come along. It's something that maybe my late father would have liked to have joined me in doing. So that's on my mind. And it's a historic moment as well. And I'm just keen to be part of it, I think. And yeah, pay my respects.
And Helen, you're also joining Kate on this journey. You already went to Green Park to lay some flowers. How did that feel?
It was lovely. It was so peaceful there, even though there's a lot of people around. But yeah, nice and peaceful, and everyone just showing their respect. It was really lovely to see the flowers and read the messages that people have left. And yeah, it's just been a lovely day to be part of.
And we're just about to enter the gardens, which is the last chunk of walking, if you like. Have you guys thought about how you're going to feel when you get closer and closer?
Oh, it's going to be emotional. It's going to be, yeah, I can feel it now actually. Now you say that, it's I don't think I can put into words how it's going to feel. It's probably a feeling I've never felt before and will ever really feel again. It'll be something surreal.
Yeah, it's a new experience for me. I used to work at Churchill War Rooms just over there, and it's in my consciousness how many people came out for Churchill's state funeral, and this is the first state funeral since the 60s. So I think I'm going to have that in my mind. We've been counting down in those hours of walking, counting down to these next few hours, and yeah. Definitely weight on the shoulders and an emotional experience, I'm sure.
Okay, and Helen, thank you so much for joining us. So not that much longer, a 5-hour wait. It's been a lovely walk. People have chatted and come together, shared food and drink and held people's spaces. So not that long a wait to get to the War Room.
What an experience. Chichi Uzundu, thank you. And that's it from us. I'll be back at 10, but the news continues here on BBC One as we join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Goodbye.